In this recording, we'll explore biases. One of my favorite topics is unconscious biases because of the deep impact it has on our decision-making process. So what are cognitive biases and what can we do about them? A cognitive bias is a systematic error in thinking that affects the decisions and judgments that we make. So how does it work? Based on experience, values, beliefs, culture, religion, our brain goes on autopilot and take a shortcut. It's not a lack of data, rather than a blur that will make our reality different. Actually, it's only natural because there's so much information out there and so many decision-making patterns, specifically more than the 300 million that our neocortex can process. An example of a cognitive bias will be stereotyping. We have the tendency to associate nationalities with a level of acumen or intelligence. It is true that some cultures are more inclined towards a certain behavior, but that doesn't mean that all people from that specific country display the same behavior. Cognitive biases are studied closely in the recruitment and purchasing functions, where people can make bad hiring or purchasing decisions blurred by certain bias. Also, ethics officers can make bad decisions based on a bias. All that we have to do is make sure that our biases become conscious when we're making decisions. Let's explore some biases that we as ethics officers can fall into. The appreciation bias. We like a person, so we tend to see only positives in that person. Confirmation bias. Finding the data that support our decision and neglecting the one that goes against it. In PhD or MBA papers, to make sure that we don't fall into the confirmation bias, you always have to study counter arguments to your proposition. Also, since now people are circulating a lot of information on social media, people tend to click on an article only if they disagree with the headline. More than 94% of people will just forward the article without looking at the content if they agree with the headline. Now, to explore moral biases, let's look at three moral biases that we might be encountered with. Moral myopia, rationalizing an ethical breach. An example of that would be in sales. People will take shortcuts, maybe sometimes pay bribes, and will tell you, I did it for the organization's sake. Moral myopias can turn into moral blindness, where people will not see the line between what is ethical and unethical. Another moral bias is moral muteness, where people don't speak about a certain ethical breach and will also rationalize it. They'll tell you, for example, if I talk about it, I will lose my job. A third one, and a very important one, is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you have conflicting attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors, and it produces a feeling of mental discomfort, leading to altering one of the attitudes. A great example of cognitive dissonance will be the case of Carlos Ghosn, the former CEO of Renault and Nissan. People will definitely define hiding information from your organization as fraud, but will argue that when Carlos Ghosn did it, he had his own reasons. Besides, he made the company a lot of money and was underpaid. In summary, every time you're making a decision, are you aware of your conscious and unconscious biases?